We can't stop growing. And it's the same thing with AI. AI is going to force you to grow. If you don't learn the ways that you can enable your business with AI, you're going to get left behind. And there's a lot of ways to save money here. And then you're getting all that time back. Now, that time back allows you to do what? Put training into your people. Get back to the core of what it is that we're trying to do. If you can't sharpen your own axe, then we're going to help you sharpen your axe, because we've all got to get better. We got to level up. You can't be worried about, what AI is going to do in the future. What you got to think about is, how can I use it to make my business better? How can I use it to make myself better? And what is it that we need to do based off capabilities that we have now to be more profitable in the future? That's what you need to be thinking about when you think about AI.
From Sera Systems and billyGO, this is No BS with Billy Stevens and Landon Brewer, the unfiltered, straight-shooting podcast that dives deep into the heart of home service trades to uncover the truth about running your business. You're entering the No BS zone with Billy and Landon.
All right, welcome everybody back to the No BS with Landon and Billy, because that's what we call when I start announcing it. This is a part two of a previous series that we did with Travis Kelley, who heads up the operations at billyGO. And he has such a wealth of knowledge and information when it comes to all things productivity, efficiency, leadership management, AI, database, you name it. We thought we'd go into a very specific segment of his expertise, which I'm excited about, because there's an element of that software can solve for where the industry's going that I'll share with you guys as we get into the conversation. But there's one specific element that I think that software can solve. There's a huge weakness in the software that is currently in our space, and it would transform the speed as the direction that the industry is going. So I will cue that one up for you, Billy, to tell you what that is, my thoughts on that later. But why don't we open it back up for Travis to talk about a little bit about, as you came into this organization, and you obviously, with bringing somebody like yourself new in, there's going to be some transformative change management that's required. Talk about that. Talk about your process for change management. Did you struggle with that? Like, tell me about that.
Okay, that's a great segue here. So yeah, for me, coming here, I wanted to get back into a smaller business with somebody who understood business and understood technology and has a leadership background, right? So, I mean, just knowing, Billy, I mean, I'm all these employees, and all these employees moved with Billy for a couple of jobs. Like, wow, okay, good leader. Business acumen. It was very obvious after I spoken to him a few times. He knew exactly what was going on in the space. And the fact that he's building the platform at his current revenue level, to me, was mind blowing. Okay, wow, this could be very significant. In the bigger space, right? You have these platforms. You get to a point. We can reference a bank for an example. You have this bank. It gets really big. What used to be really good, as it gets bigger, the benefits just disappear. They don't exist anymore. You don't have to give them to you. We've already gotten to a certain point. There's a similar thing in software engineering. Well, we've got you to a certain point. We're sticky. We don't have to move as fast anymore. I get paid really good. What are you going to do without me? And they can work at their own pace. They can do their own things. So talking with Billy, he wanted to accelerate rapidly. And he talked to me about what are the things that we can do. And when we look at, AI and ML and all the learning language models that's come out of GPTs, and how do we turn those into action models, and how do we apply them to our industry? Are the other big companies doing those things? Right. And through using them, you quickly learn no. And so for me, working with so many bigger companies, what were the things that I experienced? I told this to Billy. So there was a task that I was given that took me a couple of days to build. It would have took me 3 days to get access to it for some of these bigger companies. And then if I got access to it, would they have gave me full access to go deep and do it myself? Or was it going to be, well, for this, you got to meet with this guy, and for that, you got to meet with this dude. Oh, that dude's on vacation. Oh, and his backup's on vacation too. Call this guy. Maybe he can get you. Oh, we're going to have to fly you over to here because this is the only guy that knows the system and his department's over there. But they're on this other project and they can't do it at this time. I didn't have any of that. Billy said, what do you want? What do you need? I need this, this, and this. Cool. Any limitations? And Jeff, I remember Jeff, he came in my office and he's like, Travis, this is billyGO. Just go. We'll pull you back if we need to. Just go. We want to transform this thing and get it moving. And so, looking at it from that perspective, and then too, like working with the largest organization in the world, the Department of Defense, U.S. Army, and the largest employer in the world, Department of Defense. And then, you naturally want to go to bigger companies, but I went to a complete startup. So then my mind completely shifted. I've got to be able to pivot 100 miles an hour if I need to. This ain't going to be extremely structured and red taped and meetings and right. And so, like Billy talked about in the other episode, we could run to the hall and talk, he sent me a message just like last week. We spoke for 3 minutes in between him doing a podcast and me doing a project workshop. And he sent me a message and he was like, man, I was thinking about that all day long. Let's talk about this again. And we only talked for 3 minutes, but that's how productive we are when we get to meet with each other. Because we're fighting the same fight. We know what our goals are. We know what our revenue goals are. We know what the activities are that we need to take, our entities, our activities, and what transactions need to take place on the ground for us to even meet these revenue goals. And where do we meet as far as responsibility? He's the visionary. I'm the integrator. We have a great team of technicians and craftsmen and specialists in the field, and collectively together, we can solve problems really fast. There's no red tape. There's no big meetings. Now, sure, we have a leadership meeting weekly. We've got to look at our numbers. We have a daily huddle, but it's 15 minutes. And honestly, most of the time it's like 10. Here's what we did yesterday. Here's what we have scheduled today. What are we going to do to make up for our shortfalls? What are we going to do for tomorrow to make sure we're at 80, 60% the next 2 days ahead? What is our, this time of the season? What are the priorities that we have? Opportunities might be limited in HVAC. We got to do the tune-ups. There's not going to be any invalid calls. We're going to go after these things, and this is how we're going to go after it. And here's a list that we're going to do for outbound calls today. What are our prospecting efforts going to be? What is our marketing channels that we're going to change? What is our message that's going to change to make sure that we get to this thing? I just did that in about 30 seconds. That's how fast our meeting could be. And everybody understands.
So do you see this being the same though? So I think as organizations scale, like you said, you pivoted, you went from big red tape organizations. It was hard to get stuff done. You had to talk to different people to get whatever access, to more of a startup. Do you think as organizations scale from startup into that they can maintain that ease of communication and like leanness, or do they have to get, hundreds of employees and everybody focused on can you maintain the leanness and ease of communication as a scale?
Let me take this one and then I'll let you finish it up. But
Great question.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm like, I gotta have this one. I mean, give me one, dude. We are startup forever. I mean, we will never be nothing but a startup. It doesn't matter how big we get, how long we're doing this. We will have the startup mentality forever, and that is the way I build organizations. I don't. Resting on my laurels is allowing it to be big, and then you slow down, and then you start doing committee red tape, blah 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 blah. Right? Businesses should be called problems, right? It shouldn't be called a business. The real noun for this game we're in is called a problem, and we're solvers of a problem, and they never go away. So the minute you lose that startup mentality and become complacent is when you lose your edge, and when you lose the vitality and the fun and the creativity that we all enjoy every day. And so as long as I'm around, we'll always be a startup.
I like that idea. I really like that. And it's also kind of like I heard this, I think, on social media, some video clip, you know, the definition of a CEO. And the definition of a CEO is, what this person's definition was. It wasn't, necessarily the best leader, the best manager, somebody that had accounting back. It was like your job, somebody that viewed their job is everything is in business is a problem. And we solve problems at all levels. And if the problem reaches you and it can't be solved, the toughest problems, that's what the CEO spends their time working on. And I think that's what helps keep an organization like that perpetually in startup stage, because you have somebody at all levels of the organization who are like looking at the biggest problems. And, that's, we got some big problems in our industry. And unless you're in the industry and experiencing those problems and can see what those problems are now and are going to be, you don't know what direction to take with the software, right? And so AI is seems to be everyone's solution. To me, AI is just a buzzword that people throw around. AI this, AI that. There's so many AI products that are being affiliated. Most of them are just off the shelf crap that's repackaged and specifically focused for the industry, and being marketed to contractors. But like there are real benefits, and I am by no means an expert in this, as you guys far outweigh my knowledge base here. But there are real applications of AI with machine learning. Some of these things that we had already talked about a little bit, that you can take something that's already efficient and make it more efficient. You can take something that's already operating at 20-30% net and squeak out more and make it more productive and revenue producing. If you apply the right AI and ML to it. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I can. So I think really we got to think in verticals, right? Like how many foundational verticals are within AI? And so with the deep learning and the knowledge reasoning and the agents and the bots, you talked about machine learning, natural language processing, speech recognition, cognitive computing. Think in verticals and how many verticals are real and are working, and you've seen it and you know it's working, you know it's working well. We can go back to 2010, right? The dome built around Israel. What was that made with? Might be the two letters AI. It's not new. Been around super long time. People have been waiting 25 years for people to talk about AI, right? So it's just like you said, it's the buzzword, but we've still got to be realistic. Now we're seeing changes and transformations like we've never seen before. And so I think we've got to be careful though, to your point. AI is not here to replace jobs. It's to make our life easier, right? Now you're going to have to skill up. If you want your life to be easier, it's not because you're weaker. It's because you've gotten stronger. So, okay, yeah, I've taken this thing off my plate. What can I do now? Right? And I mean, we should all want to be that way. I don't know why. I'm just thinking of my wife right now. Um, I retired from the army. I told her my retirement was for you. I'm going to go into business. I'm going to do these great things. I want to do it. And she could have had a pretty easy life, right? But she decided to homeschool. She decided to lead the women's ministry group every Monday night. She decided to volunteer at the church. She decided to do she's not slowing down, and she has an accounting degree and she's accountant for one of my companies. So there's all these things, but she didn't stop. We can't stop growing. And it's the same thing with AI. AI is going to force you to grow. If you don't learn the ways that you can enable your business with AI, you're going to get left behind. And there's a lot of ways to save money here. Me and Billy, we were talking just today, right? Like, oh, this particular thing is going to save us about 4 hours of work a week, right? That's kind of where we're at. Well, hey, Jeff, how long does this thing take? Oh man, I spend like 30 minutes, every day on this thing. Oh, really? Wow. Then I go to the finance department. How long you spend on this? So this X amount of time. Oh, wow. Okay. Excellent. I'm going to prioritize that task. I can knock that thing out in a couple of days, for a few $100. And then you're getting all that time back. Now, that time back allows you to do what? Put training into your people. Get back to the core of what it is that we're trying to do. And it's trying to make people better. And so, if you can't sharpen your own axe, then we're going to help you sharpen your axe, because we've all got to get better. We got to level up. You can't be worried about, what AI is going to do in the future. What you got to think about is, how can I use it to make my business better? How can I use it to make myself better? and what is it that we need to do based off capabilities that we have now to be more profitable in the future. That's what you need to be thinking about when you think about AI.
I think there's got to be a perspective too that you have to really lead the charge with AI, right? And so if you're just a software developer that is developing in our software for our space and don't have experience operating in our space, I think there's a challenge with that. And forget AI for a second. Like I remember when I went into a business that was doing just shy of $10 million, and I was going to operate that business. And the first place that I looked was like, holy crap, there's so many employees. It's so overhead heavy. We had, it was either 7 or 8 people in the accounting department for a less than $10 million company, which, if you know anything about our space, that's a
That's really high.
shitload,
Yeah.
right? It's like way too many people.
That's high in any
And
department making that much.
yeah.
unless you're accounting
And
firm.
so what was my first activity? I went to each of those people. I said, "Hey, let's write down what you do. What do you spend your time doing? What's your job description? Just to see what's happening." And I've, run larger organizations with smaller teams and less payroll. So I got to figure out how do we fix this, right? So I went to everybody, and I will never forget. I went to one person whose sole job, because we did a lot of high volume jobs, was to take all of the commission reports, all of the stuff, and do job costing. And they would get all the information from the installs and put it in the install folder, and then she would have the job costing stuff, and then she would file it. And so I said, well, so what do you do after you've completed it? You click, I put it here, I open the filing cabinet, I file it under the customer's name or whatever. And I said, okay, great. Then who takes it and what do they do with it after that? And she said,
Had no
I
idea.
don't know. No idea. So I asked around and I said, what is it? And nobody ever did anything with that. And somebody's entire job was dedicated to doing that. And I said, well, how does it make you feel that what you spend 40 hours a week plus doing, nobody does anything with? I mean,
Yeah.
it's so, you know, but unless you had, that was built by somebody who didn't have accounting background. That was like, okay, it was a sales background that knew that they had to do all these things. So they just kept hiring people to do stuff without having a whole workflow for it and process. So we just redesigned the workflow. We grew the business to 24 million a year. And then we had 4 people in the accounting department at 24 million, right? Do you think we're making a little bit more money now? And so that's just a overly simplistic way of thinking about one area, but just one, you can apply machine learning, AI, different workflows to do that and magnify that 10 times. Now, that's what I'm excited about. What do you think about that, Billy?
Well, I'm thinking back about the workload that he unloaded, right? He unloaded a half a day worth of work between, what was it, 3, 4 people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Two people.
And we were able to do this because we had the data set and everything we needed so that we could just build it. And so 3 days later, a couple $100 and problem was solved. And so it was like what you did, Landon, but now that was AI before AI, right? And that was a machine learning before machine learning. You just take a basic principle of workflow and then you just solved it. We can solve these in like hours, days,
Yeah.
and then move to the next one. So that's a good segue from, you know,
Well, see, you went back
human
into
intelligence to artificial intelligence, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, human intelligence, big deal, right? Human. Yeah. So that piece though, right there, you said the most important thing, data.
Yeah.
I have the data. It's cataloged. It's in a dictionary. It's defined. I know what it's linked to. I know what it references. I know where it's sourced. I know the data type in each cell. I know, right? So when you maintain that level of detail orientation to your data, you really can do anything with it. And Billy, Jeff and Adam asked me several times, like, Travis, you haven't really said no, or you haven't really said you can't do anything. I got the data. What are we talking about? Anything's possible. How much money do you want to spend? That's the question. How much business value is this thing going to bring? That's what we've really got to look at. If you got the data, you can do anything.
Well, so this is a small segue into what I was leading you into, Billy, with I haven't shared with you, but as we were having the previous show interview, the one thing I thought as he was talking about data like this is that, if you're looking to solve problems in the industry, if you're looking to see where the industry is going, what's happening in an industry right now, that you got all the changes and stuff, but you got one of the biggest things that's happened in terms of our business is like increased valuations from all the influx of private equity and investors getting interested in it. I don't know if you saw the Wall Street Journal just did an article, over the weekend about, plumbing and HVAC people becoming millionaires from private equity, and so there's a lot of talk about it, a lot of buzz. But here's what I know. Back in, I think, different article I also read over the weekend, it said like 2019, there was 19 PE firms invested in the space. Now there's like 88 that they've counted, plus others that just invest in all of those entities, right? So there's countless investors that have poured billions of dollars into this thing, and it's not going away. And what I see happening here is the industry is going to consolidate in a similar way, probably like retail pharmacy and some other industries have done. So if you know that's going to continue to happen, if you know there's going to be consolidation, if you know the data and speed and efficiency is going to be key, you probably want to build and monetize a software company. No, you probably want to solve those problems. Like what if you've been through a transaction? What happens in a transaction, in a large transaction, right? You got to build a data room. First thing they ask you for is data room. They give you an information request list, and on the information request list, there's this laundry list of things that they're looking for from you in all the different categories, right? And and so these organizations, for any transaction at magnitude, they will spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in this due diligence process. And it's all, what does it all come back to? Data,
Yep.
right? So if you were an enterprising young man, I would say, you're following where the industry is going, enabling consolidation and streamlining the due diligence process and audit process and making that, pennies on the dollar for these organizations and saving them time and effort, and just at the click of a button having that information readily available. I would think that would make, that feature would be the most valuable feature in the history of software.
Well,
What do you
that's
think?
Well, then you're gonna have to see the tool that we already have.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's
Oh,
something.
so you've already solved it.
Yeah.
See, I'm late to the party.
Right. So I mean, yeah, and I can definitely share it with you at another time. But yeah, we had so that was the first two things I did when I got here. Connected it to. So I asked Billy. First thing was he was like, "Well, what do you want first? Definitely got to be the P&L. And then how do you want me to assess this? Assess this as evaluation. What perspective lens do you want me to look at this from? So they're both. But yeah, I can give you numbers to things very, very quickly with how much you should buy the company for, sellers' discretionary earnings, really any data point you want on that stuff, and a report that you can hand and say, hey, I want to buy your company. So you go in and you do a 3-day consulting. I learn your business by looking at your P&L. I run the valuation. What department do I need to lead based off where the business value is at, and what technology do I leverage to give you the insights necessary for you to continue to do work with me? And by looking at your P&L, I'm going to find financial leaks. It's the easiest thing to find. I paid for myself day one. Day two, do I have leadership ability to lead your team to get better? Day three, do I leverage technology? Now, when I leverage technology and I show you all the leaks, would you consider selling based off what I see? Well, here's your report. I'd like to buy it.
So literally we can get this in an hour, right? Once we have P&Ls. And so we started buying companies earlier this year, not because we want to do a big roll up and be a big PE firm. That's not what I'm trying to do. I started buying companies so that I could learn what these PE firms are going through, right? We wanted to solve their problems because what I was seeing was it would take 2 and 3 months to move same software to same software, right? I'm like, this is taking 2 and 3 months to do.
Yeah, that's a big issue.
Right.
Yep.
And so I'm going to go buy something, and I'm going to go through that. I'm going to go through that issue with myself. I'm going to see how bad it is. And man, it's a job. It's a job. It took a village to transfer this information and restructure this business, take over it, do all the things that need to be done to own that company, right? Not own it, buy it. We buy it, of course, but to actually take ownership of it, right? And start using it and start bringing the revenue in for yourself. And so what we learned since December of last year by acquiring 2 different companies, we've taken all that information, we've documented it, we've done all the stuff that we need to do. And so this is one of the things that he's being tasked with, right? Is how do we take in these companies and move this data and set these businesses up in literally a few days, right?
Yeah.
And everything's done. You can buy it, set it up, and operate it under your new entity all in the same week. That's what we're doing here. And so, because the private equity firms don't have any of these tools because they rely on someone else's tool.
Yeah. And I will tell you from personal experience several times, that is a chore. That is a monumental task, whether you're going from one CRM to another CRM, or, your instance, your enterprise instance of a CRM, and converting, their legacy version over to yours. That is, you got to change business units, job types, change workflows, change everything about how they're used to. It's almost like I wish you'd never been trained on it, because they unfortunately allowed too much over customization of their product, and you're using it in a way that doesn't make any sense for us. So you got to scrap what you learned, and now you got to use ours. And it is there is a learning curve, and it's a massive pain.
Right. And so a year ago, we were 41 days to transfer software, someone that's moving over to our platform from what we're learning, right? A year ago, we were 41 days from the time someone wanted to change whatever software they were on to our software. And then what we've learned by doing these acquisitions in conjunction to transferring all this information, we've got companies that we've moved over in 9 days. And literally training, everything that's happened, all happened in 9 days. And so we've taken it from 41 days to 9 days. And then our next step is, you don't need us at all. You just go to Sera website and you do it yourself. It's done.
Yeah.
And so that's what's coming from this, and that's how we think as a company, right? We're problem solvers, right? And that's a big part of what Travis does. Is he's the guy. Well, I remember let me just back up to say, I remember when I first decided to build software, and I went and met with this first company to build the software for me. It was a boutique firm in Arkansas. And I remember spending a couple of days with these guys, and, everything was, yes, we can build that. Yes, we can build that. And so thinking that software was easy, not knowing what I was getting myself into, I was like, oh, wow, they're just going to build this and I'll be up and running in no time. And so, and then it didn't take very long, maybe like a couple of days of actually working, that I realized, I went to my wife and I said, building this software is going to be like herding cats. It's because we are speaking 2 different languages, and I don't even know the translation, and I don't even know how to find a translator, because I'm an analog on the ground guy, right? We're out here, we're running this business. Everything is gray in my world, because every day is different. Every service call is different. Every minute of every day is different than yesterday. And then these guys are black and white. Everything's exactly by the book, right? Black and white. And then how do you take gray and turn it into black and white? It's hard, right? And so we just had to start. That's why I decided I'll build a plumbing HVAC company at the same time that I build in software, because that's the only way I could ever figure this out and get it right. And you still get it wrong. It's still hard. But that is why I decided to do both at the same time. And so now that's what we do. We're just a problem solving company, and he's a great problem solver and a doer, and he understands that he's a translator is my best way to put it. And so this is really an additional value that, we brought in. His brain trust is amazing. And so that's why I've got him on the show. So I'm going to step aside a little bit and let him do some of the more technical talking about what I just talked about.
Well, yeah, I mean, what you said. So it's extremely complex. It's easy to sit up here and talk. And, I said earlier, Jeff and Adam hadn't given me anything I really couldn't do because I had the data. Now I'm talking about from Sera. Sera builds our P&Ls, right? Sure, we have stuff in open AR. We have these things, we have those things, right? But man, you talk about a breath of fresh air. That's huge. So, we're able to manage that data set within the system from the beginning, and then it's building our external references for monetization. So then as we add products, add new entities, and we want to push, different transactions to different P&Ls. I think of, LIFO and FIFO perpetual accounting method. If I've got to buy, is it cheaper to buy what's on the shelf right now versus what's in the warehouse right now? You had to do that during COVID. If you weren't doing that, you lost millions of dollars. Those are two different P&Ls though, right? So you add a level of complexity, but if it's not a level of complexity, it's just in your system, it's just a flippable button to send it this P&L versus that P&L. Oh, wow. Now it's significantly easier. And all those records and all those references are carried over in that P&L for you to, to be able to show the IRS, the bad uncle here stuff. So I think that, we look at, I think of QuickBooks, Billy, like the QuickBooks data sources, we had 18 data sources, about 800 columns of information, right? You have to ingest that and transform it with GPTs, put it in a data lakehouse, warehouse it, build the data pipelines, put the analytics on top of it or the logic on top of it. And then you want to get the predictive analytics into it. And then how many dashboards are we going to build? We've got 6 departments, right? For our leadership meeting, we got the 6 departments. We have an acquisitions department because we started going down that route. We want to see our revenue growth by company, how many customers were acquired, how many customers are still active, how many customers have we spoken to since they've come from this company to that company? What's our churn? All these metrics. And so as we started that build out, we quickly went into like 40 dashboards, of just information across departments, across multiple companies. And so now we acquire another company. All I do is I just connect their P&L and I get the same exact insights because we already have the operational framework. So Microsoft Fabric and Power BI, all these things. And so as we transform and look at data differently, from whatever standpoint we want, we then can integrate that into Sera. That's just the data set that we add to Sera to give us that full intelligent platform versus this particular thing we're focused on, that particular thing you're focusing on. And every company is going to scale and all problems remain the same. They're just different at scale. How you measure things, what you measure, and what you look at is different. So you can't satisfy, every single customer, or you couldn't, but now you can because I can just implement that template. That template's embedded in the system. And, when you were talking about Landon transferring from, a legacy tech stack to a new tech stack, that's as painful as it gets. The last company I was with, they built a new global trading platform for a $5 billion company. It's tough as it gets. About a 300-man team in the UK doing that. From a global 24/7 workforce, right? Beast of a project. With the embeds now, anything we build, we can embed into the system and then we have it. So we're not losing you were talking about, I got to transfer this data set to that data set. Even if you call it APIs, you can't carry over logic statements. You can't carry over automated workflows. You can't carry over your dictionary or your catalog. But if you do an embed of a data set that's already unified against a data reference, now you have the architecture to just turn it on and turn it off. So that's what Billy's talking about, like how much faster we can do things. And that's how we're setting up Sera. If we can't do that, we're going to be left in the dust. And these bigger companies, they're not going to be able to do it as fast as us. Right? And that goes back to these engineers. Well, I'm entitled now. I don't want to work in person and I just want to be back here. And, I'm so sticky. They can't let go of me even if they want to. I can change this at the pace that I want. We're challenging that, right? And I think that's just the brilliance of Billy saying, you know, when I build this platform, I'm going to do billyGO at the same time. I'm going to force these two functions. I'm going to bring the leadership, the art, and the science all in one package. It's not just going to be computer science for the masses. We can't solve these problems. It's not going to be just, you know, the craftsmen, the specialists are pissed off because the technologists don't understand them. It's going to be, we're going to work in the same building. We're going to sharpen each other day by day. And that's what we're doing. So, you know, a lot of the key architectural features that are in Sera are built for the future. For these systems that, you know, are 10 years older, like you referenced, the legacy tech stacks, do they have an open solution? Is it extendable? Do they have data mesh? Do they have their ontology, the security and privacy right? You know, do they have data as products? Right? I mean, me and Bill were talking today. We're building so much stuff. Like, oh my goodness, we probably got a lot of products on our hand. And just some of the architecture that I've built. I've had several people reach out to me trying to like, hey, I'll do your architecture for you. And I was telling them in the Army, we call that IPB, intelligence preparation of the battlefield. We don't go to war until we prep. I don't need you to prep my data. If you prepped my data, I probably built something before I knew what I was doing. And if that's the case, then I have to go back and fix it. And so there's no perfect model. You got to execute. So there'll be some refinements, right? But there's updates for that. Version 1, 1.1, 1.2, whatever. So if building architecture by itself has become a service, and if you just check, if you're in technology, you guys know what I'm talking about, check your inbox. Everybody's trying to sell you that. If that's the case, and the consultants are going to the biggest companies to do that, right? Guess what? They recognize that there's an architecture problem. They don't have the unified data reference architecture. So,
and I mean, it's become a cottage industry that there are just consultant implementation teams for some of the CRM. I mean, it's, you know, we've hired them and paid them hundreds of thousands of dollars to set it up only to be broken later.
Yeah. Yep. They come in with a pretty slide deck, do some work for you, leave, no maintenance, right? And you're just kind of stuck. Well, what if you have a platform that like, okay, you're not stuck. We're going to give you all your data. How do you want to transform it? You want to transform it? You know, the conversation Billy talked about in the early podcast, you know, I was doing some pizza. We had a guy, you know, a client reach out to us and was like, hey, I need to figure out what this is. And he really didn't, I shouldn't say, but he wasn't exactly sure what he was trying to look at. Now he knew what he wanted, but I didn't know how to look at it or, okay, cool. Well, then, you know, me and Billy talked literally for like 2 minutes. I think it ended up being an 8-minute video. But hey, here's the 8 data sources. Here's how you reference those data sources. Here's how you bring it in. And oh, by the way, the sheet that I'm sharing with you, you don't have to do anything except call your data from your source, and it all works real time. All the logic's there, all the array formulas, functions, formulas, links, everything's connected. So just turn it on, plug and play, right? Because we already have these things.
Yeah, what he's referring to is we had a company come in and visit with us a couple of weeks ago, I guess now, and they come in, they ask their questions, and literally, you know, he built an 8-minute video and sends it over to them, and they pop it in the Sera, and boom, they got what they asked for.
This is how you do it.
Yeah. Sometimes too, though, you know, I think a lot of business owners, they don't know. That's why it's so important for your engineers and your business owners to have that FaceTime and just really go over those things, because, you know, I keep saying Jeff because, man, he's been so aggressive about it, and I love it. Is he, you know, when I first met him, he kept saying, you know, I can't do this and I can't do that. Man, if he keeps going at it the way he is in a year, he might be taking my job too. I mean, he's writing dictionaries now.
Right?
Yeah. And he's really getting after it, which is just awesome, you know. And now I feel like when I talk to him, I don't, you know, I felt weird when I first came here. Maybe not everybody understands my language except Billy. I can tell you, Jeff, he's starting to understand my language for sure.
Yeah. I know 10%.
Oh, no, you know more than that.
Feels like I know 10%. No. Yeah, I mean, because I must know more than 10% because it only takes us 2 or 3 minutes and we got it figured out, right?
That's right.
And then we just walk away. He was just like, oh
Exactly.
yeah, well, okay, good. And we leave, and then next thing I know is we got this new thing. So
Yeah.
that's how I like working around here, and that's the excitement, why I can't wait to get here every day, because it's just fun what we're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Game
But
changing, industry changing.
yeah, I mean, like I said in the last podcast, I mean, we're at the very beginning of all of this because there's really not anything out there addressing this situation. So it's a 100% opportunity.
Yeah, man, you can't make something scalable when you got to take years to go back and fix it. So these, I think we're really going to be at the cutting edge, where we're at, where we're going, the growth that we've had, to say, year over year, 25 to 7% growth. It's pretty powerful. When you look at the COGS and the EBITDA, what billyGO's done, and then how it's been applied, it was real easy when I connected QuickBooks to see the story. I don't know if you remember, Billy. I'd stopped you in the hall one day and like, man, it's a beautiful story. You bit the bullet that first year, but boy, it's been beautiful after that.
Yeah, you did say that. We bit the bullet the first year.
Yeah,
but we had to get started. We didn't have any customers.
Yeah,
zero
especially
customers.
when you're using your own money, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just part of the game. You got to be ready for that. So it was so beautiful to see it. And then, so you have that scalable solution and the company continues to scale and grow. And now you're acquiring outside of the company. Now you're adding products that you can sell that can support other lines of revenue. And so as you aggregate more and more of this data, you're just going to get more and more insights quicker, and the platform is only going to get better. And, as we get, it's going to be beautiful to just connect more and more and more as we scale and grow with our customers versus the big company that's going to say, it's going to be like a year because we have to go back and do this. Or, hey, we built this thing on the wrong database, and this database doesn't support the things that we want to do. So we've got to go through that legacy tech stack transformation that Landon was talking about. Right. And that's painful. And all the customers are going to feel it. They're going to see it, and they're going to know what it is. With Sera, it doesn't have to be that way. They just got to talk to us about what their problem is, and we just need to connect it for them. As long as they maintain the clean data set, right? And then once you get in Sera, you ain't got to do that, right? That's what AI is for. We can transform your data types. We can run scripts to keep it, you think of like the date timestamps. Well, sometimes milliseconds don't display a pretty visual. You got to take the milliseconds out. You only go to the second. Sometimes you can go to the minute. Sometimes you only want a date. Sometimes you want to look at it as a view of a week. And, all these data types determine what visualization you're going to see and what level of experience does the operator have and what view do they need to see. And again, there's not really a right answer to that. It's the experience of the operator, this perspective they have, the view they see it from, and the scale at which they've grown, because it's different. I mean, what's the difference of a millisecond in combat or in the Wall Street market? Significant. What is it for call rail? It's insignificant. We can't say that, that was an opportunistic call, right? But, Wall Street combat, it's milliseconds count. So all those things, right? How do we see it? So, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about AI, the way that Sera's set up, how we can implement that technology on top of the platform without changing that architecture, because we're not legacy, we're not old, we're not stuck. We're not, we don't have to rebuild our engineers or those engineers. If you haven't gotten new engineers, and think about the different languages that systems are written in. I remember what system I was playing with. It was written in a Unix language, and the Unix language for a database is like, for a timestamp was like every second starting from January 1st, 1970, right? And that total number you had to then transfer into a today date timestamp that's readable and ingestible, right? there's a gap between the engineers of the old and the engineers of the new. And there's been so much advancement in the last 3 years. Where do you find those guys that's been working in the 5 to 7 year space? Right. And then how do you connect them with the older guys who did those legacy tech stack build outs that can help that person even move the needle much, much faster? So that's where the coach and the mentorship comes in and so significant. And there's a huge age gap there too, right? Like our kids were built with a phone in their hand since they were kids. They can still do stuff that we probably can't. Like, wow, how'd you learn how to do that? Oh, I don't know. I just do it, you know?
Well, I've always found it so ironic and funny that Billy's in the software business.
Right?
Yeah.
So it keeps me young.
It must be. Sometimes I often wonder. No, you know what? I wasn't satisfied. I just wasn't satisfied, and I saw the need. I've met so many contractors over the years, and I saw the same struggle. Didn't matter if there were 1 million or 100 million. I kept seeing the same struggles over and over and over, and no one's really solved for those struggles. Still, we just built software to organize and file things. Right. I call them digital filing cabinets, and that's not what I wanted to build. I didn't want to build a digital filing cabinet. I wanted to build something that was going to help you operate a business very simply. You know, when Travis is talking, you may get lost a little bit in this podcast because he's talking some really high level stuff. But at the end of the day, the more high level he becomes, the simpler it is for us to use. And that is the whole thing that I'm trying to, bring out.
I'm glad you said that, because at the end of the day, it's keeping it super simple. But it takes somebody that thinks about the future in the mind when they build out. Don't just put out the fire right now and move on to the next thing. Put out the fire and make sure it doesn't come back. Control it as much as possible if it's not a controllable factor. And then what are all the variables that you can put in place to make it controllable? Right. Those are the, because we don't, and you're right. I think a lot of us technologists, we make things maybe sophisticated, or we talk at this certain level. It's not intentional. It's just the computer science way of talking. But again, that's 1/3 of the problem, the leadership and the art. And guess what? The leadership and the art isn't more important than science, but it's 66% of the pie. If you got a good craftsman, you got a good specialist, you got good leadership. You've seen, Alex Hormozy said, you don't need software until you have a $10 million company. You need Zapier and Excel. That's it.
Yep.
And so if you have the leadership and the art, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just understanding that. I mean, at the end of the day, it all comes back down to people.
Yep. With all this stuff that we're talking about, AI, software, all these things, it always comes back to the people.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what we're trying to solve for, is how do we solve for these people so that they can make these extraordinary businesses and have that opportunity to sell them if they want, because everybody's wanting to buy them, right? But you got to have something to sell. First and foremost, a PE firm is not going to invest in a crappy business that makes no money. They're going to invest in something that's already doing pretty decent.
Yeah. Right? That's another interesting thing you said right there, right? So tech is going to add a 3 to 4x multiplier in your company.
Yeah.
It's 1/3 of the pie. It's going to give you at least a 3x return.
Yep.
Well, on that note, so you guys, I know you keep up with the technology. See Elon Musk's new release of his robots the other day?
Optimus and XAI. Have you seen XAI? Right. He's going to make some killer money off that.
I'm thinking about investing, because I wouldn't mind having a fleet of robots that don't talk back that could go out and fix air conditioners and plumbing. What do you think?
Well, so from that perspective, it's going to be interesting, right? And so there's some, I mean, it's too early to tell. I mean, I think I'll be honest that Tim's in here, and I had told Tim, like, definitely it's $30K. Yeah, I'll buy one now if they have it, just to help my wife with the groceries and maybe even spank my kids when they get out of line, because my teenager's bigger than my wife now.
You have to be careful, because if you put it in the wrong setting, they may end up spanking your wife. That's a whole different.
You say that. My oldest daughter looks exactly like my wife, so that'd be horrible. And I'm sure we'd never have a robot again. But those robots, so they've limited the use of the joints in case it goes rogue. When you start talking about stuff like that, like, hey, humans, fingers can move, so many degrees, but a robot's going to move so many, right? And it's limiting, and it's intentionally limiting until they can get beyond all these hallucinations and some of all these other things that AI creates. But that's not a threat. That's not a threat. Again, that goes back to, okay, I got to go do an install. How many guys we need to do an install? Well, how about half the dudes and a robot that I know can do these particular tasks? That's just the opportunity to make more money. And that's what everybody wants to do. So, and it's not like the jobs are going to get less and they're going to go away. They're not. All these things are still going to be needed. And then you think about some of your sophisticated installs, right? Some old house, you've got this thing built in the attic. You got to move the water heater from this place to that place to do this thing. And, the robot's, I don't know, 5'5" and 140 pounds. Well, you need a guy that's 5'2" and 100. So just all these things, you're not going to be able to create all these different use cases and scenarios. And I think you'll always need some type of command and control, from a human.
Yeah.
There is no truth to the rumor that you're actually a robot, right?
Not at all. And maybe the Army made me one, but I try not to be.
I think this is a great show. I hope you guys hung in there. I know that we're, at a high level conversation here that, that maybe may make you dizzy or whatever. But at the end of the day, it takes this level of commitment to make something that's going to help you move your business forward in a very simple and efficient way. And we're just problem solvers. That's all we are. And we're solving for the problems that are inherent in this industry. And there's so many. And I can go on and on and on, the village that it takes to sell an air conditioner, install an air conditioner, and collect, all that. It takes a village to do that. And so let's not have a village do that. Let's go solve that problem at some point. And that's why I got into this industry, because I got into the industry of software, was because, I've been a contractor for almost 30 years now. And I've sat in every seat that every contractor's ever sat in, and had those, long nights of no sleep and fear that I can't make payroll and all these things. And, the good times, and then, start realizing that, I'm the greatest thing in the world during the good times. And then all of a sudden the bad times show up and get a slap in the face real quick of how not smart I am. And so that's the motivation that drove me to try to solve these problems, because I didn't want to go through them anymore. Right. And I think really at the end of the day, this is, just be clear, Travis works for billyGO and I work for billyGO. And yeah, we have Sera too, but our focus is billyGO. And then when our focus is billyGO, that means our focus is all contractors. We are solving for contractors using billyGO as the test dummy, if you will. The guinea pig, right? And
but keeping it simple.
But keeping it simple,
team,
right?
Time. That's what it's all about.
That's right. So think about if you took your team, if you're listening here today, and you took your team and 30% of their time was spent not doing your business as your business as is intended each day, right? They were in creating ways to get themselves out of the work the complicated work that they're involved in. And so what has actually happened is, because they're helping us build this software and these actions and these and categorizing all this stuff and thinking through all these things, they actually have created enough time for themselves to still run the company.
Well, it's created scalability.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful.
And so think about it. If your people 30% of the time were distracted with something else, what would happen to your company right now? Not only is it chaotic now and everybody's hair on fire, what would it be then? It'd be nuclear, right? Absolutely. And so the amount of effort, and I applaud every team member we have at billyGO, because, when they're hired, they are told, this is what we do here. We're a laboratory. And you know what it does? It brings in exceptional people. I mean, I think Travis was, when he came in and he met all the team and he's met everyone, he couldn't believe the quality of the people, the class of the people that work here. That's not ordinary, because it is a place that people want to work at, and they feel challenged for something positive, not challenged by the day to day. They're
Well, not
challenged.
to take anything away from that culture and environment of the people, but he is used to being a government employee, so
Well, I thought, it's the class, but I jumped in the fire with them. Like, oh, okay. Hey, are you having this problem? Oh, you seen that? You saw that? Yeah. Okay, cool. I think about some of the, the stand-up meetings. There was data that people had to like actually fill out. There's a lot of data they're not filling out no more. There's no reason to do that. Let's take that away. Right. So I think,
And the thing is, even at billyGO, think about this for a second. Even at billyGO, this was available to them already, but the old habits are hard to break, right? Even in this environment, that is the issue, right? They want to revert to their old habit of doing it.
That's just human nature, though, right?
Right. That's nature. The fascinating thing about it is.
Well, what's really cool too, I think, is that, and I keep saying Jeff, but probably because I feel like, man,
and for everybody out there, Jeff is the plumbing Jeff is the plumbing department manager. I don't know if we ever clarified that.
Yeah, Jeff Sims.
And he's amazing. In fact, we'll get him on this show as well.
Yeah, we need to. But I think, like, man, he really wants to know this stuff. But I think all of our team has really, Tim, we talked. I showed him some the various GPT models that he could leverage, even help him out with some of the things on the podcast, and he jumped all in. And then, Cooper, he was already into it. Like when I got, so me and Cooper connected really easy. He's got a private equities background too, so it was easy to, like, we were kind of, I'd say, at the same bandwidth of understanding on this stuff. And he's just quiet, Billy, but Cooper knows his stuff,
right?
And, I showed Adam. Adam got into it. Carla got into it. Amy got into it. So I think, as I showed them, I think people just don't know what they don't know. And going back to what you said, or should we be afraid of it? Or Landon, I think that was you. Should we fear AI? Can we trust AI? I think all these things, but when you show them how to use it and how to use it properly, and then at the end of the day, you're prompting the machine. In ChatGPT, you can save the memory. So you create a bank of memory that you want it to remember. Like when you go to the website and you Google something, it keeps a history that you search, right? So it starts picking up the patterns. Well, what's cool about, you can do the same thing on the internet, but the internet's just, I think it's not as good. But with ChatGPT, as you're going through and you're building these prompts to get results to things that you want, you can update the memory to only keep track of the things that you want it to keep track of. So that's getting back to, the future of generative AI, where I'm going to have a conversation with the bot versus the dispatcher. And all that stuff's going to be given to me because I've taught the machine. I've done the machine learning. And now the AI is giving me the return of the things that I wanted to give me. So it's going to be super interesting with all this stuff. And our team's definitely, like, if you're right, they had all the capabilities. It was all there with Sera. It didn't take much. And you told me from the very beginning, it was like, just show them the data, show them the numbers, show them these things. And they've all jumped right into it, which again, that's just having a great team. It's picking the right people.
Well, this is, again, an amazing show. I'm kind of biased because I'm part of it, but in fact, I watched the whole thing.
Why are you recording it?
Yeah. Right. And I just love the where we're taking the show and how we're diving deep. And into our industry from an angle and point of views and ideas that just aren't being discussed,
Yeah.
in the industry. And we're going to be a part of this for a long time. And we're very excited about the future and how things are going. And appreciate everybody that's hung on now for this long, watching this.
Just getting started.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I love about it. Not to cut you short there, Billy. I love the fact that, like, my mission is, like we see where the industry's going, what's happening, all the outlier things. My mission is that we all monetize from it, right? We all continue to make money in it, but we don't lose control, because I've seen this in other industries where outside folks or outside investors or other smart people come in and start taking control and say, "Oh, I think it'd be better if we did it this way and that way." Like, if we need to control the workflows, we need to control our processes, we need to have our SOPs. Like, we have a chance, especially with, like Sera being an industry insider. It's being built around a home services business with the sole purpose of making home services business more profitable, right? And more efficient. We can control the workflow. If we leave it up to somebody else, if we leave it up to a third party, if outside investors at billion-dollar businesses come in and start controlling our workflows, our life could suck really quick and the money can go out of it really quick, right? So I think this is really to me, it's like a movement. We got to get an entire industry behind this movement where we as operators control our own destinies and stop letting the billion-dollar business control.
That's right.
Sounds like you've been through a few M&As too.
And then also a couple energy.
But yeah, no vendor lock-ins,
Right.
You just can't afford it. It's like,
yeah.
Boy, that's so true.
It is so true. The amount of things that we think are going to change our lives, that we get ourselves into in these businesses, and then the outcomes are you're just spending more money.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the outcome. So, well, again, man, I'm sure we're going to have you on the show more often than not, because we've always got new crazy things happening here at billyGO and, of course, Sera. And then we just want to let everybody know, what we're doing here and how quickly we're evolving, and the ability to have, the software, help teach you how to run the business better is really where we're going with this. So that's pretty awesome. But thank you again, Travis. I know you're, probably been here since 4:30. I'm sure you and Jeff are competing on who gets here earlier now.
No, he's got me by far.
Oh, okay.
I get here around 7. He's already been here for this.
Just want to make something very clear. I will not be participating in that game.
Yeah, I told him I think he's more military than me. Yeah.
Yeah. 4:30 is not in my DNA.
Right.
What time do I usually show up?
I don't know. It depends, right? Maybe 11.
Oh, 11.
10.
Yeah.
I don't know. Right.
Awesome. But it's the quality of what we get done, not
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. That's everything.
We can do more in a 3-minute meeting than we can do sitting in a committee for an hour, right?
Yeah.
That's the whole idea.
Yeah.
And so we prioritize and we get things done. So awesome. Well, thank you again, everybody out there. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Tell all your friends. We're now on YouTube, of course, iHeartRadio, our media, TikTok.
We haven't built an AI bot to get automated likes and subscribes and do that yet. So we still have to rely on the listening audience to help us out.
Yeah, we've been busy. So thank you again, and we appreciate everybody hanging around. Have a good one.
Yep. Take care.
See you guys.
No BS with Billy and Landon is produced and delivered to you by Sera Systems. At Sera Systems, we've created a better way to run your home service business and unlock unprecedented growth. Our field service software was designed by real home service professionals to help you save steps, charge for previously unbillable time, and win more business. But the true change requires more than software. Our live coaching helps you understand and control the aspects of your business that matter most. It's about time for a new era of service, and we're leading the way. If you're ready to join the hundreds of other contractors who've been able to increase profit margins more than 50% within 6 months, visit Sera.tech today. That's Sera, Sera.tech today.